It was mail time and the sergeant was doing his round. I didn't even expect mail. I never did. However, on this particular afternoon, the sergeant actually stopped at my cell door and slid mail through. It was a letter from Krista. She seemed upset about my reply to her response to my introduction letter. She claimed that she really liked my letter and said that she was not indirectly writing to Chris through me. She said that she was trying to get to know me and that people always did this to her, abandoning her. So I formed my response. I figured it couldn't hurt anything by getting to know this woman. I hollered over to Chris and asked him about his mail because he was awfully quiet. He told me that he had received a strange letter. It was from a woman named Becky. The woman said that NK said that she still loved him and was thinking of him. He ripped up the letter and flushed it and claimed it was a hoax. Have you ever received mail from anyone before claiming that NK still loved you or anything even close to this? I asked. No, Chris replied. Okay, then it was her, I pointed out. Becky, he asked. No, it was NK, I answered. I told him that he shouldn't have ripped up the letter because he may need it later. He said he wasn't thinking about it at the time. This mistress, NK, really gave Chris anxiety. It was more as if she scared him a bit. I rarely saw him lose his cool or lose his composure. However, this woman just sending her love gave him reason to pause, and not in a good way either. Chris seemed a little more anxious that afternoon to get to studying our legal work. His parents bought us a black law dictionary. We were discussing his arrest, interrogation, and his memory of things. He told me he had trouble remembering what happened, so I pointed out the things that he did know. It turns out that the investigators interrogated him for hours prior to giving him a lie detector test. They kept telling him what he did instead of asking him what he did. He explained to me that he felt worn down and defeated by the investigators. It had been a confusing turn of events leading up to this point. Why does this girl get you all the way out of your character? I asked him. Don't you have a girl in your life that was so evil she turned your world upside down? He asked me. Indeed, I do. Many, actually, I admitted. Inmate Watts was going through the motions. I think maybe NK did write him. A possible thank you for not ratting me out letter, but in code. That's just a theory, but it's possible. Chris likely spent long stretches of his early prison days in solitary confinement, meals delivered through a slot in the door, exercise in a caged yard, alone, limited contact with staff, and virtually none with other inmates. For a man used to family life, neighbors, co-workers, and a suburban community, the transition must have been suffocating, at least until Dylan became his neighbor. Being able to connect with someone in prison is a big deal. That is the difference between taking a swan dive. You know, I was in a 5-year relationship once. The first few years were good, however, it was the last 2 years that broke us. I loved the girl I met, although I resented the girl I left. She is still to this day trying to cause me problems, and our relationship ended in 2007. Why did it end? Chris asked me. I left her, I explained. This woman cheated on me, got me thrown in jail, wouldn't let me leave or have friends. Wait, she got you thrown in jail? He asked. Yes, she did. I came home late one night from a cookout, and I had like 2 drinks, if that. She accused me of being out partying and cheating on her. She ended up throwing some punches at me as I was trying to leave. I had to grab her around the arms to stop her, and she fell in front of the entertainment center. Some stuff fell and broke around her. She ended up calling the cops, and I was taken to jail. She was 19 years old. I was only 17. We were together 2 years after this. However, it was the fatal blow that started us downhill. Bro, I will tell you more about her later. You tell me about your 2 women. Well, Chris sighed. My heart was in 2 places. Your heart doesn't have a brain, I interrupted. You're absolutely right, he replied. He told me that he and the mistress had been getting serious and close. He admitted that he was stupid to cheat on his wife, and that he asked God's forgiveness every day for his infidelity. The mistress was growing upon him. However, the wife had his heart. It was near the end that the mistress tried to make Chris choose between her and his wife and kids. I asked him who he chose. He said that he chose his wife and kids. The mistress was not too fond of his decision. Many questions flew through my head, so I asked the first one. When did she make you choose? The night of the incident, Chris admitted. Did your decision have any bearing on what took place? Like the incident? I asked him. Well, he sighed. By then my wife already found out about the affair. This was around the time I was going to try working through our problems and try mending our relationship. I had kids with this woman and we were married. I couldn't throw all that away for some woman I just met, although I was about to. Yeah, I know about falling fast for a new woman because it happens to the best of us, I replied. David and Bathsheba, I referenced the Bible. That is the perfect example. There are those temptations put in our path that we are supposed to overcome. Jezebel, or Enke, was the forbidden fruit, which made her all that more desirable, I answered. Yeah, and it was costly, he admitted. That was far as we got on that subject that night. Hey, I'm that guy. Chris yelled over to me. I came over to the outlet on the wall in my cell. What do you mean? I asked him, puzzled. You know, the guy who planned his whole day, he replied. Oh yeah, and you don't want me to be that guy, right? I asked him. No, not after I caught myself living my whole day planned. What do you do? He asked. I just go about wherever the Spirit leads me, I told him. The Spirit led me to start a new book in our series. It's called Epistles. Basically, we are breaking down the Word of God to readers. Interpreting the Bible, I explained. That's what we do all day anyway, so why not? Chris agreed. Since he was going to break routine now, we talked for a while. He told me about his girlfriend Anna and his parents both sending power of attorney paperwork to help him with his appeal and getting him a lawyer. I read the POA papers and I explained to him that neither of them had anything to do with talking to his lawyer, nor did they have anything to do with his criminal appeal. Both sets of paper only had to do with his finances. He never signed them. I wouldn't have signed them either. His girlfriend and his parents had animosity between them after that, possibly. However, Chris's parents agreed to pay half. This Earl guy was not a licensed attorney, but really a jailhouse lawyer. Chris's parents never did pay their half, but Anna put all the money up. She swore that he was an attorney. However, his parents swore he wasn't. They weren't going to put up $1,700 or something close to that amount. Chris had a recent conversation with Anna where she cited Genesis 2:24. Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. So what does a typical day look like for Chris Watts now? Prison life is structured, repetitive, and stripped down to the basics. The novelty or the shock of incarceration has long worn off. What remains is monotony. Good morning, inmate. Chris likely wakes up around 6 a.m. He receives breakfast, often something simple like oatmeal, toast, or cereal. Meals are regulated and portioned, a far cry from the home-cooked meals of suburban life. Daytime activities, depending on his custody level, he may have access to work assignments such as cleaning, kitchen duty, or maintenance. Inmates also attend mandatory programs, but because of his notoriety and protective custody status, his assignments are likely limited. He may spend much of his day in his cell, with access to reading material or religious texts. Religious practice. Over the years, reports suggest inmate Watts turned heavily toward religion. He has been described as studying the Bible daily, seeking redemption through faith. This is a common coping mechanism for long-term inmates facing the reality of a life sentence. Honor your father and your mother. Deuteronomy 5:16, Chris replied. After this, Chris saw a scripture that he took to heart and walked out of his relationship with Anna completely. Micah 7:5, do not trust in a friend. Do not put your confidence in a companion. Guard the doors of your mouth from her who lies in your bosom. However, Chris failed to read Micah 7:6, which says, for son dishonors his father, daughter rises against her mother, daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies are the men in his own household. Anna tried to point this out to no avail. I liked Anna a lot. I also liked his parents. I was an unbiased neutral party. He ended up walking away from his relationship with Anna. She had me ask Chris why, and I did ask him. Tell her Micah 7:5, he instructed. So I told her in my response letter to her. Chris kept getting called to the business office to sign over his house to his wife's family. I kept advising him not to do it until he could have the house swept for evidence. He prolonged signing it over, week by week, coming up with excuses. Prison was boring. All Chris and I did was 1. Write books, 2. Study the Bible, 3. Work on our cases, 4. Pray, 5. Work out, 6. Play sports, 7. Use the phone, 8. Eat, 9. Study more, 10. Talk, 11. Talk some more, 12. Write letters, etc., etc. After working out, Chris and I started talking about our woman. I explained that Krista can be a little lazy. He informed me that his wife had a crazy side because she was from Jersey. I began venting to him about how no matter what I do, the justice system keeps judging me on my past. I wish they would judge me on my past, he sighed. Instead, they only judge me on that one day, he added. You're absolutely right, I said, because you have never been in trouble with the law. You were a hard-working citizen. You were the perfect father, righteous husband, I added. Well, I did commit adultery, so I was a terrible husband, he said. That's hardly a crime, I pointed out. So were you going to leave the wife at any point? No, I felt bad for cheating and tried to work things out with my wife right before the tragedy, Chris told me. Was your mistress upset about it? I asked. Oh yeah, he answered me. I have to ask, why the first confession? It's all a confusing blur, he managed. Okay, then why did you switch the confession to you taking all of the responsibility? I asked him. Because I wanted to honor my wife in death as in life. For her family as well, he admitted. Are you going to at least appeal and get the correct story out there? I asked. My character is assassinated anyway. I don't need that stress on my wife's family because even though they hate me and want me to rot and die, I do care for them, he answered. Well, bro, which confession was the truth? I asked. The first confession is the closest to the truth. However, I don't know if I can go back through the court and relive all that again, he informed me. Let's just pray on it. God will lead you in the path you need to take. It's the glory of kings to search out a matter. However, the glory of God to conceal a matter. Proverbs 25:2, I cited. He understood. The human mind is not built to withstand endless repetition, shame, and isolation. After 7 years, the psychological toll of prison life is almost certainly weighing heavily on inmate Watts. One of the most crushing realities of his situation is that he has no future outside prison walls. Unlike inmates serving fixed terms, there is no countdown to release, no chance of parole, no appeals on the horizon. For Chris, every year looks the same as the last, and every year will continue to look the same for decades to come. This sense of permanence often leads to what psychologists call institutionalization, when an inmate begins to adapt so fully to prison life that they can no longer imagine anything beyond it. For Watts, who once dreamed of a different life with his mistress, the contrast between what he thought he would have and what he has is unbearable. 7 years in, he may be resigned. He may also feel a deep, gnawing emptiness that no amount of religion or routine can fully cover. It's been 7 years, but the name Chris Watts still circulates in documentaries, podcasts, YouTube channels, and social media discussions. His case has become a permanent entry in the dark catalog of true crime. He is aware of this. Inmates often hear about their own cases through television access, magazines, or even conversations with guards. Knowing that he remains infamous likely brings a mix of emotions, shame, regret, and perhaps a grim sense of attention he no longer wants. But unlike the first few years, when his name dominated headlines, Chris Watts is no longer at the center of media storms. He is fading into a different kind of existence, not forgotten, but relegated to history as just another example of the unthinkable.